Drawing fur is a little bit different than drawing hair. First off, it has a kind of a different shape, but there are things about drawing fur that are almost exactly the same. But let's start out with just like a form. Let's say, I don't know, let's say we're gonna consider the bear's head for a minute, okay? And we'll put together two forms. We'll put together a sphere and a cylinder, okay? Now the first thing that we're going to want to consider is we're going to want to consider the local value. So if we look at a bear's head, the local value is medium dark, right? So when we get down to our dark range, we're probably not going to go all the way to black. Like for instance, let's make a quick comparison. At the bottom, we'll say at the bottom of our cylinder is a nose, right? So we'll just be like, okay, we'll make that black and that'll give us a point to compare from. So at the bottom of our cylinder is a nose, and it's black. Now the underside of the head is really dark. But as we move up into the light, like with everything else, it lightens. So the nose also is not going to be, the nose also isn't going to be that light, and so I need to take it down. Okay, all the work that I've done so far is to establish the local value of the object that I'm about to draw, okay, that I'm working on. I'm going to start to deal with the texture of it. So one of the things that I have to solve here is that the texture that I've put together in just getting my local values is, it's really enunciating itself, and I'd like to just have that become less so that I can go over the top and show you other things happening. Okay, so imagine his back, the next form behind him is this. And let's take that form as well and see what we can do to create a sense of that. So the first thing that we'll do, as is usual, is we're establishing its local value and the local value's relationship to the overall form. So this side of it is going to be really dark. And as I move up into the light, it's not going to be light. However, it's also not going to be white. Okay, I've established local value. So it's kind of dark and brown. So the next thing that I would like to start to try to establish would be that the fact is that the major, it doesn't really have the same kind of major forms that, it doesn't really have the same kind of major forms that hair has, but these would be kind of major forms, the ears. So we established one form, two forms, three forms. Now I'm going to establish 4 and 5, okay? So I'm just... Now all of these forms are established in relationship to the light with regards to their local value. Okay, now the next thing that I'm going to start to work on for this one is I'm going to start to work on establishing edge detail, the shape of the silhouette. One thing I can say is that, I want to go back a tiny little bit and work on I want this form to have a better top. It doesn't look like it's got enough of a top to it. And so I'm looking to get this form to have so I've got a bottom, medium, middle, and top. And I feel like that starts to make it feel like it's got enough of a top. And up in here, this stuff I want to feel like a nice part of the top form. Okay. Now I'm going to go back and look at the way I'm really developing a silhouette on the edge. And we can see these really cool little hairs popping up into the shadow behind this guy. And it makes it feel really tactile. It feels like you could, when you get just the smallest indication of that edge, or what we call the silhouette, it really starts to feel like fur, right? You start to think to yourself, oh man, this stuff is like bristly little... And some places you'll see that really clearly, and other places the edge will move off into, it will be more soft. But right now I want to go through and I want to see how much of this stuff I can use right here. Okay, and then here as I move further into the distance, everything is just going to soften. And I'm going through and softening some of the edges because it just feels a little too overstated. And I would do that with my eraser. Okay, so I've established the major form, the local value, the silhouette, and now what I'm going to do is I want to start to go in and try to find details in here. So one of the things that I would do is I would say, okay, and down in this zone, working with a really sharp pencil, look at the way that the fur is not like hair. It's just these short little kind of mats, and they go in these little groups. And so as I work out from, here's like a little center. This is a center of a group of little bits of fur, and it works its way out and over. And you see detail of fur in the light, but then as it moves over into shadow, you really stop seeing. You might see an occasional piece like that. I think in order to make this part look more convincing, I think I'm going to have to, I don't have the skill in this tool without doing this. I'm going to have to smudge it a little bit to just soften it. And then I can show you how I would do that. So now I'm back in, and what I would do is I'd be working out this way with lights, little lights cutting across the top of there. Actually, I don't like that at all. I'm going back on what I just said. Take that back. I hate that. So what I want to do is I want to go with a dark, like this, and I want to start to give myself really small forms now. But I want to be careful not to overstate it. But these forms are just really little, and they're going out that way. And then as you get up into the light, even up in here, you can see that they're just tiny little bits of forms stretching across, little bits of these microforms which you're putting in. Is a little form. This is also establishing an edge, which is nice. I can do an edge there, and then I can do another edge here. So by this little focus on edges and small forms, I start to develop something that feels very fur-like. Now what about like down in here? Like you can also see like little areas of the fur where, although it's darker, but still working in these really tightly knit patterns. And then I wonder if I could get away with lightening some, like in there. But I can't lighten out so that it loses its location on the overall form. But I think I'm getting away with that. And then over here we have more of that. So where you're coming over here, you can see as you turn downwards, there are these little shapes of form. And then you can find little bits of, little bits of light on the light side of those little. It's almost like what you're drawing is kind of like this. it's a lot of little shapes like that, and you're drawing a dark side of that, and maybe even like a shadow that that thing is casting, and then you're drawing the medium side of it. There's the dark side of it, and there's the medium side of it. You're drawing like a lot of little things like that, and then you might put it like it might catch just a tiny little bit of the light, and it's a lot of little shapes like that all grouped together throughout this guy. They wouldn't be as hard edged as this, it would be composed of a lot of little hairs. And anyway, that's the way that I'd go about drawing fur. Kind of like this guy.